For more than a decade, people have been wondering, is the downfall of Kim Jong Un's regime in North Korea finally happening? Despite being one of the most isolated and repressive regimes in the world, North Korea has somehow managed to hold on, propped up by three main pillars: strict rationing, relentless propaganda, and the overwhelming power of fear. But the truth is, these pillars have been weakening for years, and under Kim Jong Un's leadership, things have only gotten worse. It's been one failure after another, pushing the country closer to a breaking point. So what's really going on behind the scenes? In this video, we'll dive deep into these failures and how they've shaken the very core of the regime. Now let's talk about the three big mistakes Kim Jong Un has made that are speeding up this collapse. First, we have the Tower Mansion project, which was supposed to be a grand symbol of progress, but turned into a disaster. Then there's his totally misguided food production strategies, which have only made an already dire food crisis even worse. And finally, there's his attempt to rewrite history by downplaying the legacy of his grandfather, Kim Il-sung, which has caused a lot of confusion and resentment. These three major blunders have done more than just make everyday life harder for North Koreans. They've sparked growing anger and dissatisfaction, not just among ordinary citizens, but also within the elite and military ranks. With the country now facing serious economic challenges and growing unrest, it seems like Kim Jong Un's regime is reaching a point of no return. Could we be witnessing the beginning of the end? Let's break it all down. The Tower Mansion project, symbol of ambition, source of chaos. Let's kick things off by taking a closer look at the Tower Mansion project, Kim Jong Un's ambitious effort to transform Pyongyang into a symbol of modern North Korea. In April 2022, the regime completed an 80-story skyscraper in the capital city as part of a broader plan to construct 50,000 new homes by 2025. This project was first introduced during the 8th Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea in January 2021 and was intended to showcase North Korea's economic strength and progress. According to the regime's plan, 10,000 new homes were to be built in Pyongyang every year until the ambitious target was achieved. But while the project may appear impressive on paper, the reality has been far less glamorous. The execution has faced numerous challenges, with funding being a significant issue. North Korea's economy is under immense strain, thanks to international sanctions and ongoing financial difficulties. To make up for the shortfall, the government has turned to the Donju, a class of wealthy elites who have built their fortunes through various illegal financial activities, like black market trading and unauthorized currency exchanges. These elites are not exactly given a choice. They're being strongly pressured to invest in the project in exchange for greater influence and favor within the regime. Although this tactic has brought in some short-term capital, it's hardly a sustainable approach for such a massive undertaking. On top of that, the focus on speed over quality has led to serious concerns about the construction's safety and longevity. The rush to prioritize speed over quality has caused significant construction problems. Take the 80-story skyscraper in Pyongyang, for example. It was completed in just 9 months, an incredibly short time frame for a building of this scale. To put it in perspective, in countries with advanced construction technologies like Japan, a project of this size would take at least 83 months to finish. The fast-tracked construction has resulted in widespread structural issues, with residents frequently facing power outages, unreliable water supplies, and other critical infrastructure problems. In fact, back in 2014, a 23-story building in Pyongyang collapsed, tragically killing around 500 people. This was a stark reminder of what can happen when the regime prioritizes speed and appearances over safety and quality. Despite these ongoing problems, the North Korean government continues to flaunt these towering structures as symbols of economic success. During the grand opening of the 80-story tower, Kim Jong Un organized an extravagant fireworks display to mark the occasion. But notably, this ceremony took place at night, which wasn't a coincidence. It's likely the regime held the event after dark, so they could redirect all available electricity to the tower's surroundings, while other parts of the city went dark. ensuring that the lights stayed on for the celebration. This highlights a deeper issue: North Korea's chronic energy shortages. The elaborate ceremony was less about celebrating actual progress and more about masking the persistent infrastructure failures that continue to plague the country. North Korea's ongoing food crisis, failed policies, and growing desperation. Beyond the collapsing infrastructure in Pyongyang, North Korea is also facing a severe and long-standing issue: food shortages. For years, the country has battled food insecurity, fueled by a mix of natural disasters, outdated agricultural practices, and crippling international sanctions. Unfortunately, under Kim Jong Un's leadership, these problems have only intensified. Despite attempts by the regime to implement new agricultural policies, these efforts have largely failed, worsening the situation rather than improving it. One of Kim Jong Un's flagship agricultural projects has been the push for greenhouse farming. In 2015, the government built the Pyongyang Vegetable Greenhouse Farm, a massive facility covering 68 hectares, designed to grow vegetables like tomatoes and cucumbers using advanced farming technologies. This farm was hailed as a model of modern agricultural innovation, and the regime attempted to replicate its success by constructing similar facilities across the country. The Jungpyeong Greenhouse Farm in North Hamgyong Province, completed in 2019, and the Riwon Greenhouse Farm in South Hamgyong Province, finished in 2022, were part of this broader effort to address food shortages. While these greenhouses were intended to increase food production, the results have been far from successful. However, despite the intention to boost food production, these greenhouse projects have encountered significant challenges. Greenhouse farming is notoriously energy-intensive, and North Korea's persistent electricity shortages have made it almost impossible to run these facilities efficiently. Greenhouses rely heavily on consistent electricity to control temperature, humidity, and other key factors that allow crops to grow. But with power cuts being a regular issue, keeping these systems operational has been an uphill battle. As a result, production has been severely impacted. And even when the crops do make it to harvest, North Korea's weak transportation infrastructure further complicates matters, making it difficult to distribute the food to those who need it most. Many of the vegetables grown in these greenhouses never reach the country's most vulnerable populations. In addition to greenhouses, the regime has tried more unconventional and, frankly, bizarre solutions to tackle the food crisis, but these efforts have also fallen flat. One such initiative was Kim Jong Un's Mushroom Nation plan. He envisioned transforming North Korea into a leading producer of mushrooms to address the country's food shortages. Mushroom farms were built, and the regime even promoted the high nutritional value of mushrooms. But without the necessary resources and expertise, the plan quickly unraveled. The mushroom farms failed to deliver the expected yields, and the project quietly faded away. Another peculiar attempt involved promoting rabbit farming as a solution to the protein shortage. Rabbits were seen as an ideal livestock choice because they reproduce rapidly and consume far less food compared to larger animals like pigs or cows. On paper, this seemed like a reasonable strategy for a country with limited resources. However, in practice, the lack of proper care and resources resulted in many rabbits succumbing to disease and malnutrition. Ultimately, the project failed to provide any significant relief to the country's food crisis. The regime's attempt at urban agriculture, known as the Rooftop Garden Project, failed to achieve meaningful results. This initiative encouraged city residents to grow vegetables on their balconies and rooftops, but the urban environment in North Korea wasn't suitable for farming. Most citizens lacked the necessary farming knowledge and experience to cultivate crops successfully, and as a result, the program fell well short of its intended goals. North Korea's food crisis stems from a combination of factors, including climate change, economic sanctions, and outdated agricultural methods. In recent years, the country has been hit by natural disasters such as floods and droughts that have wiped out crops, worsening the situation. Additionally, economic sanctions have restricted the import of essential agricultural equipment and supplies, making it even harder for the country to boost food production. The regime's focus on using these agricultural policies for propaganda purposes has further compounded the problem, as little attention is given to addressing the underlying issues. Consequently, the food shortages continue, leaving much of the population to suffer from malnutrition and hunger. Kim Il-sung's cult of personality, a legacy in crisis. One of the most risky decisions Kim Jong Un has made is his gradual attempt to undermine the legacy of his grandfather, Kim Il-sung. In North Korea, Kim Il-sung is not just a former leader. He is revered almost as a deity, the founding father who shaped the nation. His image is everywhere, from school textbooks and government propaganda to towering public monuments. For decades, the regime's stability and power have been closely tied to the cult of personality built around Kim Il-sung, keeping the population in awe of his legacy. However, in an effort to elevate his own status, Kim Jong Un has subtly tried to distance himself from his grandfather's legacy. He has downplayed Kim Il-sung's deification and instead worked on crafting his own cult of personality. This strategy has backfired, creating confusion and resentment, especially among the older generations who grew up idolizing Kim Il-sung. Many elderly citizens feel a deep connection to the former leader and see Kim Jong-un's moves as disrespectful. Even younger North Koreans, who have been raised to revere Kim Il-sung as the father of the nation, are starting to question Kim Jong-un's leadership. By attacking the very foundation of the regime's legitimacy, Kim Jong-un has unintentionally alienated a large portion of the population. This weakening of the traditional narrative has created a crisis of identity for the nation, further destabilizing his already fragile rule. The diminishing of Kim Il-sung's legacy has also sparked growing discontent within North Korea's military and elite class. Many high-ranking officials owe their positions and influence to their loyalty to the Kim family, viewing Kim Il-sung as the bedrock of the regime. By attempting to rewrite history and downplay his grandfather's role, Kim Jong-un has effectively weakened the system that holds him in power. This has led to increasing reports of dissatisfaction among military leaders and elite figures, some of whom are rumored to be quietly opposing Kim Jong-un's leadership. This internal dissent poses a serious threat to Kim Jong-un's regime. The military and elite class have long been crucial pillars of support for the leadership, but as dissatisfaction continues to rise, so does the risk of a power struggle at the highest levels of government. Should the military, a key force in maintaining the regime's stability, turn against Kim Jong-un, it could mark the beginning of the end for his rule. This growing unrest among the elites makes the situation precarious, and any significant shift in their support could have drastic consequences for Kim Jong-un's hold on power. Rising dissent, a nation on the brink. The combination of economic mismanagement, severe food shortages, and Kim Jong-un's attempt to distance himself from Kim Il-sung's legacy has created a highly unstable environment in North Korea. The population, already enduring years of deprivation, is becoming more disillusioned with the regime. Discontent is growing not only among ordinary citizens, but also within the ranks of the military, which has traditionally been one of Kim's strongest pillars of support. Reports suggest that even the military, long a bastion of loyalty, is growing increasingly frustrated with Kim Jong-un's leadership and the direction of the country. Earlier this year, North Korean workers in China were reported to have staged a large-scale protest, a rare and significant act of defiance from citizens typically living under strict surveillance and the constant fear of punishment. While this protest took place outside North Korea's borders, it serves as a clear indicator of growing dissatisfaction, even among groups that are generally seen as loyal to the regime. The fact that North Koreans were willing to risk protesting, even in a foreign country, signals that the regime's once ironclad control may be weakening. Such displays of dissent, though still rare, suggest that cracks in Kim Jong Un's authority are beginning to show, both at home and abroad. The growing dissatisfaction among North Koreans is further worsened by the rapidly declining living conditions. Power outages, water shortages, and the lack of basic necessities have become a part of daily life for many citizens. Even the military, traditionally shielded from the country's toughest challenges, is now grappling with food shortages and other hardships. Soldiers are reportedly being asked to provide rabbit meat and other food items to the government, highlighting just how desperate the situation has become. For years, Kim Jong Un's regime has maintained control through fear and relentless propaganda. However, as the country's problems continue to pile up, these tactics are losing their effectiveness. North Koreans are gradually overcoming their fear of the regime, and as their frustration with worsening living conditions grows, the potential for widespread unrest becomes more and more likely. Is Kim Jong Un's regime on the brink? North Korea's current situation is increasingly unstable. Kim Jong Un's policy missteps, coupled with his distancing from Kim Il-sung's revered legacy and the deepening food crisis, have brought the country to the edge of collapse. For years, the regime has relied on fear, repression, and propaganda to maintain control, but it's becoming evident that these tactics are no longer sufficient to keep the country afloat. With growing dissatisfaction among the public and within the military, the collapse of Kim Jong Un's regime may already be in motion. Whether the regime can withstand the pressure remains uncertain, but one thing is for sure: North Korea is facing its most severe internal crisis in decades. If you found this analysis insightful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts on North Korea's future and whether significant change might be on the horizon. Thank you for watching.